Hello, and welcome back to Shanon series. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button for more amazing videos. From Xenomorph Skulls to the heart of a saint, here are our top 10 creepiest archaeological discoveries to hit the headlines in 2021. Number 1. Notre Dame Crypt. The fire in April 2019 at Notre Dame put visiting this historical building on hold for a long period of time, although not all the parts of the structure were damaged, but it was closed due to the archaeological crypt that lies beneath the courtyard. It was accessible in the early 1980s and considered as one of Paris's hidden gems. It is said that during the period of excavations, numerous artifacts were discovered between 1965 to 1970, which includes a docking port before the city was made. Notre Dame attracts several visitors every year, but people visit the cathedral without even knowing about the discreet crypt, which is marked by an entrance that usually goes unnoticed. Number 2. New Forest Arbor Glyphs. This year was not best for traveling around the world. So, in England's New Forest National Park Authority, October 2020, they displayed 100 examples of historic tree etchings called Arbor Glyphs on the website for free. According to BBC, one of the most commonly spotted etchings is called the King's Mark, which was used for labeling trees as a crown property for shipbuilding in the early 19th century. It is said that not all the trees which were marked were used because steel and iron replaced timber as a primary shipbuilding material, hence why foreign investors can still spot the King's Mark today. Number 3. A crash from the past. During World War II, a US fighter plane, P-38, crashed in North Wales. Thankfully, the 24-year-old Second Lieutenant Robert Elliott walked away from the wreck, but he was declared missing in action several months later. After the crash, the plane was buried in 6 feet of sand, and it reappeared many years later when the water washed the sands away. It was found in 1970, 2007, and again in 2014. Late last year, government officials announced that the plane was given a status of first legally designated military aircraft wreck, conserved for historic and archaeological importance. His nephew, also called Robert Elliott, who is retired from the US Navy, said of the decision, "I am honored and delighted that the government has given official recognition of my uncle's P-38F as a scheduled ancient monument. My uncle was among those brave and expert fighter pilots who served with distinction during World War II. My visit to the site with my wife Kathy in 2016 was very moving and emotional." Number 4. A Scary Massacre. In 2019, a Siberian resident named Vitaly Kvasha was digging behind his backyard to expand his home and unexpectedly found human bones. He dug the remains of more than 60 people tied up in flour sacks. Many of the skulls had bullet holes. But where did all the bones come from? Who did they belong to? The government experts came to the site and believed that their discovery took place back in the 1930s when Joseph Stalin was committing terrifying crimes against humanity. It was said that the dictator forced those people who dare speak against him into a secret system of remote labor camps called gulags. Several people died from starvation, disease, exhaustion, and other brutal conditions like 14-hour workdays in extreme weather and meager nourishment, while others were simply executed. Vitaly Kvasha repeatedly asked Russian authorities to help him dig up the other human remains on his property. "For a whole year, I kept asking the authorities for help," he explains. "They said they didn't have either the money or the personnel. The only thing they did promise me was that they would come and pick up the remains, but I would have to dig them out myself." Number 5. Eerie Shipwreck. During World War I, a German ship that ran aground named the SV Karl has reappeared in 2019 during low tide following a violent storm. It is said that the British Navy was towing the 60-feet sailing vessel to London in 1917 to dismantle it. During a storm, the vessel broke away from its tow line and got stuck on a reef, and the SV Karl was declared ultimately as lost and abandoned in place. Last year, the long-buried ship emerged from the sand, giving an opportunity for people to take a look at this giant vessel. However, just as soon as the wreck became exposed, it is once again disappearing from view as the sand returns to the beach at Boobies Bay, covering its secret shipwreck. Number 6. Ofuka-Cho Mass Grave. This year, archaeologists excavated a variety series of strange circular holes at Ofuka-Cho, Japan. The holes contained the remains of over 1,500 people and animals squished inside that created a large cemetery. Officials discovered this grave near a train station in Osaka. Some of the remains show the sign of disease, and it is also possible that they died during 19th century epidemic that swept through the area. Besides finding small round holes filled with bones, archaeologists also found coffins with several bodies each. It means that the buried victims were diagnosed with a deadly disease. The bones are already in the process of being moved, and it's believed the bodies were likely those of poor people due to the lack of expensive goods in the graves. The developers said plans for the building will likely go ahead, with the skyscraper being built on top of the burial ground. Number 7. A structure frozen in time. A farmhouse in Northern Ireland that looked simple from the outside served as a spooky capsule before it was demolished a few years ago. A man named Desi was the home's last occupant. He was last of the 3 brothers that lived there. He moved into a nursing home in 2015, and 2 years later he passed away. It was discovered that his home was frozen in time and nobody touched or stepped in their house for decades. This house contains dust-covered 20th century artifacts, including hundreds of love letters, books, magazines, Victorian-era money, and even a newspaper from 1912 when the Titanic went down. There are also several other items sitting with the homeowner. Desi's neighbors knew him as a dairy farmer and an excellent cook. According to Rebecca Brownlie, who was invited to take photographs before it was torn down, she has collected the precious items and exhibited them at the disused 4-story Riddles warehouse in Belfast, constructed in 1865 for the Musgrave Iron Foundry. However, the home was willed to Desi's neighbor, and all that's left of it is the belongings salvaged by Rebecca and her images of the creepy state it was left in. Number 8. Xenomorph Skulls. Archaeologists found some evidence in 2019 at the Neolithic Hutaomuga site in northeastern China, where they found 11 skeletons bearing evidence of cranial modification, which existed 5,000 to 12,000 years ago. These skulls are also known as head bindings. This practice is going from thousands of years all over the world. The evidence goes back at least 13,000 years in human history, with the oldest skulls being found in Australia. According to the past century, cranial modifications were performed when a baby's skull is still soft and it is wrapped tightly between the 2 boards to give it a flat, elongated shape similar to Ridley Scott's alien xenomorph. Archaeologists believe that this was done by the upper class because these skulls contained more valuable goods than others. However, scientists are excited to know more about the people and who lived there, along with their cultural practice. Number 9. The Heart of a Saint. In March 2012, a thief stole an 800-year-old heart of St. Lawrence O'Toole from the Christ Church of Dublin. Investigators believe that the thief may have hidden in the church overnight and took the time to light 2 candles at the altar before taking the artifact. St. Lawrence was born in 1132 and 1161, and he was appointed as Archbishop of Dublin. His heart was kept on display at the cathedral inside a wooden box in an iron cage. The thief stole it in 2012. However, 6 years later, Irish police found it in Dublin's Phoenix Park after receiving credible intelligence. The investigation suggested that the thief may have returned it because he thought it was cursed. After then, a new enclosure was built for the heart, which went back on permanent public display in November 2018. Number 10. Human Sacrifice. Archaeologists working along the Great Wall of China published new findings that describe a previously large unknown early stratified society, the Shimao Polity, along with thousands of jade items. Researchers discovered that human sacrifice was an important feature of this society. At least 6 pits filled with the decapitated heads of young women were excavated at the site. That's it for today's video. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when we upload a new video. Also, don't forget to leave a comment down below. Thank you for watching, and we will see you on the next one.